not regressing.
God intended us to fly. Why did He give us wings?
He let us build them. Yay! I didn't put up the words of the day on the word thing, so I better do that. Let's see. Let's see. Akolotheo. From a particle. This is the reason I put this word is because what's really neat is kolotheo, which means a road. So, and I guess I should anglicize. I usually anglicize it for you. Anglicize, Akolouthousin. But this, by the way, a is usually a participle or it means, it's a prefix, it means not. But in some cases, it's a prefix meaning with or together. Together. So this means to take the same road. The reason it's interesting is because we'll see that Mark throws this in. And you know, when Mark throws this in, if he's talking about a road, you know what he's talking about, right? Hodos. Yeah, hodos. Which is really interesting because at the end here, the last word that I gave you next to mysterion, because I couldn't keep mysterion out there, is hodon, which is, by the way, hodos. Because in the same part where Jesus says that the disciples are going along the same road with Jesus, yes, the same path, right? Get it? Get it? He also uses hodos. So that's kind of fun. These two other ones are really neat words. I'll do it in Greek first. See, I-M-O, trailing sigma. So that's A-T-I-M-O-S. And do you guys remember Time? It looks like time. Time, I mentioned this word. Remember the word I was talking about last week, that the value of a person or the value of a child is time? And time means basically to put money away. Put away for, you know, we say for your retirement, but to put money away, to save it away. So a child is time. A child, so a time would be
worthless.
Yeah, worthless or not put away like a child. So this is kind of interesting word, but we'll see it's used. One I'd see. Oh, all right. I hate to pop your bubble, but T-E-K-T-O-N, teknon. Teknon. This word, let's see, T-E-K-T-O-N, teknon. Teknon, well, what word do you think we get from it?
Technician.
Yeah, technician or technical. Tech. T-E-C-C-H, tech. Well, a teknon is if you make anything, if you make fabrics, if you stitch palm leaves together, you're a teknon. Guess what Jesus is described as? Teknon. He's not called a carpenter by Mark. I don't know why someone chose carpenter, and this word is translated as carpenter. But Jesus could be making fabrics, or he could be putting together, stuff. Why a carpenter? I don't know. Maybe that was tradition.
Joseph a carpenter?
No, a teknon. He's a teknon. At least Mark says he's a teknon. So, I don't know. I don't think in Matthew, I think in Matthew it was very similar. It was a word that was not specific to wood. It was, a similar type word. But this is, means technical or tech in Greek. This word, this is really an interesting word. R-A-B-D-O-N in English. R-A-B-D-O-N, Rabdon. Rabdon. So what does that mean? It comes from the It comes from the base of the word is rapizo. Rapizo. So what do you think English we get the word from? What word? How about rap? Rap meaning I hit you. It's not rapping. It's to rap like to hit with something. This word means a stick or a wand, a stick or a wand, a cudgel or a cane, a baton used for whacking somebody. Yeah. You know, the reason it's important is because, you know, I think it's translated as stave. Okay? And when we see the context of what it's translated, in the context it's translated, we're going to see that it isn't what we think at all. So, let's see, and I left in Mysterion. So, let's look at this. Let me go see if I can find my space. I'm not really that, I am sleepy. I got woken up way early this morning. And headed in for the sunrise service. I thought I was going to breakfast. All right. Okay. Chapter 6. We're in chapter 6, which is really good. Chapter 6:1. Jesus left there and went to his hometown, his patris, literally the land of his father, accompanied by, and the word is akolotheo. So going along the road with him. Okay. Now, you know what's really important about this, and you'll say, well, why are you so picky about this? Because when I say that I'm accompanying you in English, it's really different than if I say I'm going along the same road with you. Do you get it? I mean, in English we say, well, I'm accompanying you, right? So I'm going with you, and we see that as purposeful, and that's okay, that it can be purposeful, right? But if I'm going along the road with you, that also can have other connotations. It's kind of interesting because if you take the connotation that akaleo is a road, right? Then it's hodos. Then what are you doing? You are going along with Jesus in your mind, your heart, right? Your thoughts, the way you're going, right? As opposed to just accompanying you, right? Because I'm accompanying you, I'm going with you for breakfast. But if I'm coming along with you in mind, heart, and spirit, that's totally a different kind of thing. And I believe that that's what, you know, Greek is not euphemistic, but I don't think the Greek speakers could miss this. They're going along the same path, basically, as Jesus, which is a really interesting point. However, what we know about the disciples is the disciples are not getting it, right? Yeah. They may be going along the same path as Jesus. They may be going along the same kind of thought and spirit with Jesus, but they don't get it yet. But that's the past. And so I think also he's trying to say this. So, in this too, when the Sabbath came, Shabbat came, which is Saturday, right? Not Sunday, it's Saturday. It could be Friday night to Saturday night. He began to teach didasko in the synagogue. And that's right? You teach in the synagogue, that's cool. And many who heard him were amazed. Where did this man get these things, they said. What is this Sophia? And I didn't give you the word Sophia intentionally as word of the day. I want to talk about it, though. What is so unusual about them saying this word, Sophia? What's the connotation of Sophia? Sophia means wisdom.
The application of law.
Huh?
The application of law, how to apply it to daily life.
Not at all. Ha! Ha!
It means that teachers don't work because people couldn't work on the Sabbath.
Well, look where he is. He's in a synagogue, right? Why would anybody okay. First of all, what is Sophia to the Greeks?
Knowledge.
Not only that, it's a goddess. It's a goddess. Sophia is the goddess of wisdom. Sophia means wisdom, but the Greeks believed like there was a goddess of love, right? Athena. Is Athena? Which one's the goddess of love? Aphrodite. Aphrodite. And Athena is the goddess of the hunt. And Nike is the goddess of victory. And Athena is the goddess of wisdom and thought, right? Sophia. So, right now, what did somebody just do in a synagogue? Well, what are they attributing Jesus' wisdom to? To a Greek goddess, right? So, this is not a positive, right? This is not a positive, because if they'd been applying this, if they had used, they would have used another word if they meant this guy is using godly judgment, right, or godly wisdom, right? Instead, they use a very Greek word in a very Greek sense. Now, you can say that Mark uses word indiscriminately, but has Mark ever used any words indiscriminately? No, this guy is picking and choosing out of the 20,000 Greek words that he has a choice to use. He is picking very specifically Greek words that he's using. And by the way, sometimes he picks Latin words. So this guy is picking words in the culture to mean something. So I would guess, and I would say that not only did the perspective is very clear here. He's Jesus in a synagogue, and they attribute his wisdom not to Jehovah, but rather to the Greek gods. And he says that has been given him, that he even does dunamis, he even does miracles. Dunamis means force, or even has power. So where do they think his power is coming from? The Greek gods, yeah. And, kind of, Jesus, okay, think about this from a Hebrew standpoint. I'm a Hebrew, and so my God is a God of where I am, right? And this Jesus guy, he went across the sea, and he basically, he threatened the gods. Or he put a, what do you call it, where he rebuked the gods, right? And then he showed control over the gods. Now, if you're a Hebrew, how did Jesus have control over the gods? Was it because of Jehovah?
Yes.
No. It's because he is, see, Jehovah in their minds is the God of Israel. In Judea, yeah. He's not the God of, is he God of the Greeks? No. Is he the God of the Latins, the Romans? No. He's not the God of anybody else. He's our God. You can have him. Right? And so if something's being done against the other gods, is it Jehovah? No. The only time Jehovah would have power in even their minds is where? In Israel. Now, I'm telling you, this is a very Hellenized view of the world. Because what was their view before? What is the view that God told them to remember? When they were in Egypt.
That he was the only God.
That he was not only the only God, but he was the God that forced the Egyptian gods.
Right.
Well,
Into submission.
I'm going to take that back. It is not a correct assumption to say that God is the only God. That is a modern worldview. No Hebrew person from Abraham to Moses would ever tell you that God is the only God. Because if God is the only God, then how could God defeat the gods of the Egyptians? Matter of fact, is the defeat of the gods of the Egyptians meaningful if if there are not other gods? In other words, what does this make God? Jehovah God. The top God, the God that created all the other gods. See, we are products of 2,000 years of Christian thinking and theology, right? And in our view, what do we want it to be?
There's only one God.
Yeah, there's only one God. We want that to be, right? And that's our view, yeah.
Well, it kind of sheds light too on the first commandment. You shall have no other gods before me. Well, if there are no other gods, how can any of them be before me?
Bingo. Bingo. Yeah,
You know, it's human nature to think, you know, there's gods of everything else, but, you know, I don't know.
remember when I drew a picture for you, and I drew, you know, demons and demigods and gods and, well, what's the difference? How about angels? I mean, really, what's the difference, guys? There is no difference. We want there to be a difference. And you know what? Are there gods? Well, I don't know. I like to write about it in my books. You know, my books, one of my favorite, like, themes is about gods. The gods, right? Below Jehovah. Because I think that's a really interesting theme. Because again, if there are no other gods, then what's the point of defeating those gods? Now, we are empiricists and Greek thinkers. So therefore we say,
Well, it's like to prove they're nothing, right? I mean, in my mind, there's worth of, you know, proving they're nothing, even if they don't exist, because it's to prove to them that they don't exist or have any power.
well, let me show you something. Okay, here's the real God. Let me see. I wish I could draw it. I could write it in Hebrew. I usually use my word processor when I want to write in Hebrew, but, you know, I'm not a good Hebrew writer. But here's God. And let's say we have gods. And let's say we have angels. And let's say we have, we got archangels. Yeah, cherubim, seraphims. You got, take all the angels, okay? All of them. Got them all. And then you got demons. And you got Satan in here someplace. Satan and demons and demigods. Okay? So I'm an empiricist, right? I'm an empiricist. And what I'm going to do is, as an empiricist, I'm going to go through here and say, there's no gods. Right? And I'm going to go a little further. I'm going to say, there's no demons. It's just mental illness, right? It's just illness and mental illness. Jesus didn't cast out any demons. There's no demons in the world. And that means there can't be any demigods. Right? And there's really no angels. Right? Empirically, angels can't exist. There's no angels. You can't prove them, can you? Right? And if there's no angels, there's no Satan. And therefore there is no God. Did you ever wonder why a Gnostic culture, a Gnostic society has no God? Do you ever wonder why your culture has no God? Really, you don't. Look at TV. How many gods on TV? There's four.
Lots.
Well, the celebrities were paying billions of dollars, millions of dollars, right?
Pleasure and hedonism and money and power.
Well, if you notice, we watched Thor, and you notice Thor has come from being a god to being an alien. Isn't that cool? Whoa! Now, how far? You know, anybody remember Arthur C. Clarke? You know, any technology looks like magic or mysticism, right? To those who don't understand it. I'm just saying, you know, the quickest way to get rid of God is to get rid of gods. And Paul knew this. I think the early church knew this. Because their purpose wasn't to get rid of. What did they do?
Put them below.
Well, they didn't explain away. They came alongside. That's why, if you guys were in the service today, the sunrise service, it's so early I can't. Yeah, anyway, in the sunrise service, the pastor did the Alpha and Omega on the Paschal candle when they lit it. What is that?
Hestia.
That's Hestia. That is a benediction to Hestia, guys. And what is doing the light ceremony anyway? Where does that come from?
Hestia.
It's Mithrin. Yeah, it's Mithrin. To light candles like we did. Remember, let your light shine. Don't put it under a bushel. We kind of had it under a bushel and then we lit it. So I guess it doesn't count, right? But I'm just saying, well, what the early Christians did is they infiltrated and they came alongside. And they said, we have something better to offer you. See? So, I'm not telling you that you have to believe in gods or whatever. I'm just telling you that the slope to getting rid of God begins very quickly in empiricism. See? And I'm not telling you you have to believe in gods or other gods or stuff, but you know what? There's a lot of Christians that don't think there's angels or Satan or demons, right? And neither are there gods or demigods or anything else, right? But yet in the Bible there are
Demons.
all of these things. All of them. Matter of fact, there are people that were born of the angels or giants cast out of heaven. Remember that? The Nephilim? Right? So, you can pick and choose what you want to believe. That's cool. But I just think that we need to be cautious. And this is culturally cautious. Because in the ancient world, they definitely are thinking in terms of all these. And a lot of it comes out of their pagan and animism. But you can empiricize yourself out of belief of anything, right? Yeah.
I mean, I quite honestly have never heard this approach before, but it seems to draw the line of inclusion. In other words, instead of telling a non-Christian that may believe in whether they're Hindu or Buddhist or something else, instead of telling them that their God does not exist, that to have a message that Jehovah is the top God, and that they don't have to throw away all of their culture and all of their belief. They just need to make the extension to that their God is subject to Jehovah.
That is beautiful, and that is a beautiful aha. You picked it up perfectly, except for one little point, and that's not that the God is the top God, although He is. The point is, we have something better to offer you.
Right.
So, for example, and I know that's where you're going, that's what you're thinking, because the big deal is this. Remember when I told you about the gods? Okay, how would you like to be a Greek? And all you have to look forward to is what? Eternity in Hades. And at the best, you get 1,000 years in Elysian fields. I mean, oh, thank you. Oh, that's great. And then I can go back to Hades, right? And if you're late Greek, you could be reborn into the world and then go back to Hades again. Talk about trauma, right? The Greek gods have nothing to offer you but pain and suffering. Even the name for a fever is to be cursed by Zeus. So all Zeus offers you is pain and suffering. They have one added god, Asclepius, that you can go to his house to die. Right? What do the Greek gods have to offer? Nothing. Jehovah, though, right, with the Christian God, can offer healing and salvation and happiness. Yeah.
Just because somebody believes in something, though, doesn't make it true or exist. Like Paul said quite clearly that the idols are nothing. So, it's not, you can't, like he was saying, we have the God above your God, so you don't have to give up the other stuff. Well, your culture, like things you eat and, how you dress and whatever, fine. But yes, you do have to give up those other gods because they're worshiping false gods.
I don't think Paul would ever say that. As a matter of fact, if Paul, against idols, for example, do the Greeks believe that Zeus, the idol of Zeus, the statue of Zeus, do they believe that is the god? No. Do any ancient cultures believe that the idol itself is God? No. As a matter of fact, we have a cross that we have. Is that our idol? Is our God in that cross?
It's a representation.
And you know what? Every person in the ancient world is as sophisticated as you are. They don't believe that, the Orthodox Church doesn't believe that icons the God or the saint resides in the icon, the demigod, right? Because that's what they are, demigods, by the way. They don't reside in that icon. We don't believe that the saints reside in the actual cross, or that there is, what we believe is they are spiritual, they are physical representations of the spiritual, right? See? And everyone in the past was just as, why did someone make an idol in the ancient world? What was their hope?
Appeasement.
Appeasement, that they would please their God with that, and that the power of that God would reside in that thing. And the power of the God would be able to come through that.
What
Yeah.
about relics, though? The relics they thought would heal people, or,
That the power of God would either reside in the relic or the piece. For example, if there's a teeth of if Saint Sebastian healed a bunch of people, and I have a tooth of Saint Sebastian, maybe there's some power left. By the way, these are all parts of the laws of magic. Laws of magic. Which is why I wish that people would be taught this stuff. We would be really negative if we said they're teaching laws of magic to our children, but if they taught the laws of magic as opposed to as a opposition to empiricism and an opposition to, logic or thought, right? Then you would say, oh, that's a good idea, right? But we don't teach people. The thing is, we get these ideas, like people believe that crystals and herbs and, unproven supplements and these things, they're rampant, right? People are paying millions for that stuff.
It implies transference. Freud would have fun with this.
Well, Freud was very familiar with this. Freud knew about this because this was one of the things that Freud, in that period, this is a huge thing. That's why, what's his name? Fraser. Sir James Fraser wrote The Golden Bough. And it's a proof text against magic. But in it, he lists the laws of magic. And so, again, we have decided empirically and as a culture to say there are no gods, right? Matter of fact, if you watch our culture, there is no God in our culture. Really. We've taken it away. It's out of the school system. It's out of the, they're trying to take it totally out of the public domain. Even godly values. What's marriage? I don't know. A man, a goat, a man and a man, a man and, I don't know. What is marriage? People can't define it. Well, I know what marriage is. It's well defined. It's been defined for 10,000 years. As Anthony Scalia said, you can call it something different than what it is, but it doesn't make it what you called it, So, you know what I'm saying? We have put other things in their place. But I'm just saying, and I'm not saying, I'm just giving you a cultural foundation, because you got to think like a Greek person, right? If you want to be looking at the world with the Greek eyes, in Jesus' view world. Do you have a question?
Well, it seems quite clear from the scriptures and that there are other spiritual powers besides God, but isn't everything that leads people away from God or to false gods or whatever the work of Satan? I mean, I have no problem believing that he and his demons masquerade as other gods or whatever to lead people away. I mean, the Egyptian magicians did certain things by their powers, and all throughout their scriptures are other things, but it seems to me a leap to say there's other gods.
What are angels?
They're spiritual beings created by God.
But do they do good? Are they beneficent?
Angels are.
I'm just, look, again, this is not a theology class. If this was a theology class, we would start by defining an angel. And you know what we would find after we define the angel? It is the exact same thing as a god. If we define a demon, we find a demon is the exact same thing as a god.
So are you saying that the other gods are basically demons that other people, that other religions or so on worship as God, as an alternative to the real God?
Or angels. we're not delving into theology. I just want you to think the way the Greeks think. If this was a theology class, then we could go into great detail, because what we would do is, in logic, what do? You define it, you define the assumptions, you make a conclusion, right? You test your conclusion. So, that's what you do in logic. That's what theology is. Using logic to define things like that.
But Lionel, I want to go back to what you said. Although last week you threw me a severe screwball when you said that Christianity is not a religion.
Okay?
But the point is that Christianity is the only, whatever we want to call it, that is unique.
Yes.
It has a reunification with God. It has forgiveness. It offers eternal life. None of the others do that. So, we're not in a theology class, and you're not trying to convince us
Nope.
that there are other gods.
Nope.
But the statement you made that whatever we classify Christianity as, because we've been persuaded, it has a unique message.
Let's be very clear. If there is God, then once you know God, what do you do with all these other things? You don't need them. You toss them out. Exactly. However, let's say that you are let's say you're the Greeks before God. What prepares you for the Almighty?
The beliefs that you already have, because you've already accepted that there's spiritual beings and other things, supernatural powers.
Bingo. And what did the early Christians do? They infiltrated their festivals, they infiltrated their ceremonies, they infiltrated their belief structure, and what did they put in its place? They put the big G God in its place. So, if you want, now I just gave you a freebie theological thing. But if you were God, what would you create to stand in your place before you came to a people? Where did these ideas about beliefs in gods and goddesses come from? You think they came from Satan?
It's just something they didn't understand.
But doesn't everybody have an innate sense that
Yeah.
there is a God or gods, because that humanity had a relationship with God? We had a perfect conscience at first, and then it became corrupted, of course, by sin, but we still have these innate things in us.
I've gone way, I just want you to understand from the Greek worldview. But I think this has pertinence within the context of what we're talking about, because I'm just saying that who put that view in man?
God.
God. Now, if you're an empiricist, you're a modern philosopher or theologian, where did it come from?
Evolution.
Man's own mind. Yeah. Well, I don't like to use the word evolution because that's almost a meaningless term in today's world. But rather man's own mind. That man in his own mind invented the... So therefore, if man in his own mind invented the gods, he also invented God. You see where this leads you? So again, I think we need theology classes, but to get to theology, you have to go a long ways. This is, we're touching the iceberg of something that would probably take a good semester. See? But the point I want to make to you is, number one, the Bible never says there are no other gods. There is nowhere that it says that, either in the New Testament or the Old Testament. There is nowhere that the New Testament denigrates the power of these gods. As a matter of fact, Jesus Christ himself proves the what? The power over those gods. Yeah, exactly. Because it's not to get rid of them, but rather to put in their place the true God. And that's my point. But, we are right. Once you have God, you don't need this other stuff, right? Because this guy has the power over everything. Yeah?
So basically, I think what the humans' curiosity about trying to figure out the explanation of the things they observe day to day, they created these gods as an explanation so that they could wrap their mind around it a little better and better understand, well, why does this invisible thing we call wind blow and cause storms? They couldn't understand that. So it was the beginning of their understanding of their physical world was the creation of these gods. But then the real understanding comes when you discover the true God.
Remember though, and I want you to think about this, you gotta be cautious. If the idea of God or gods comes out of man's intellect, then what does that mean about all gods?
Just fiction, so it's
They're just an explanation of things
But
that
we're
we have made up.
the hideout.
Right. That's why I show you all the time, remember the evolution, and this is a good term of evolution of religion, right? Animism, paganism, pantheistic paganism, Mysterion, agnosticism. Okay? Because in that, the assumption is, where did the idea of gods come from? Out of the mind of man.
And as we learn more things, then our ideas about God change.
And remember, the Greek worldview, I love this. You know, here is God, and here is the creation. There's a word.
Cosmos?
Huh?
Cosmos?
The cosmos, yes, thank you. The cosmos, what is created. And in the cosmos, here is philosophia. Philosophia, what man, philosophia, what man can know. And within that is the physical creation. So the assumption is that everything outside the physical creation, by the way, it's either pneuma or it's suke. Right? Right? So is most of the creation physical?
No.
I'm just saying. So, but the big point is, let's look at this. Make sure we look at it. Anyway, let's go. 3. This is really good stuff, but you know, we're not getting through Mark. 3. Isn't this the carpenter, the teknon? It's not a carpenter at all. It's a tekton, an artificer, a maker of things. Isn't this Mary's huios, his offspring? And the adipos of the same womb of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon aren't his sisters. And literally it's Adelphi of the same womb here with us. So in other words, if anyone says that these were not brothers and sisters of Jesus, in other words from Mary, unless they're going to assume there was another wife that Joseph had. It looks like Joseph is dead here. Because, by the way, Jesus, well, we'll see it. These are very Hebrew names. These are the male and female terms for siblings of the same womb. So unless there's another womb, then these are the same womb specifically. And by the way, did Christians start calling themselves brothers of the same womb? Why did Christians start calling themselves, where's the word? Adephos, of the same womb. Why?
Spiritually.
No, because Jesus said, if you follow me, you are my brothers and sisters of the same womb. Remember that was previously in Mark. But these, in this case, are really his brothers and sisters, right? That's the point. In 4, Jesus legoed to them. Only in his patris, his father's land, among his sugenes, his relatives, and in his own oikia, his house, is a prophet, a foreteller, without honor. And the word is atimos. Atimos. A child that is not banked. And by the way, the fact that Jesus calls it his patris and his own oikia presumes what?
His family didn't believe in him either.
Who is Jesus in this family?
He's not
First
valued.
born senior.
Yeah, but who is he now? Anybody see Joseph? Where's Joseph?
He's the head of the family.
Jesus is the head because he calls it in Greek his own oikeia. And he is the senior, right? So therefore, it is his house and his father's land. In other words, Joseph's dead, and who's the head?
He's inheriting.
And guess what? He's not they can't disinherit him.
He has inherited.
Yeah, he inherited. But, our impression is what? That his family, why is his family so interested in getting rid of him?
So they can inherit.
Well, because Joseph, Judas, and Simon, and his sisters, and James, they want inheritance, right? They want the property. They want something. Anyway, remember Jesus was really attacking them when they were.
I think he's a little touched.
Well, that's what they want. I mean, this is kind of like, I'll get rid of my relative by putting him away in the mental hospital, right? I mean, it's kind of that same kind of thing. In 5, this is very interesting. He could not do any dunamis there. But, and they say except, that's not really a very good translation. It's but. It says he did epithemi. So he imposed his hands on a few non-healthy people, and therapeuo. He waited on them. Now, I think this is really important because our view is that Jesus went around and he did miracles, right? But our view is the miracles he did, I heal you. I heal you, right? What is the view that Mark shows us? What is he doing?
Maybe comforting them, what did you say?
Therapeuo, yeah. Therapeuo means to wait on them menially. In other words, somebody's hungry and sick and he's doing what? Giving them food, giving them some soup, right? They're cold. They have a fever, right? And he may be taking the fever away with dunamis, right? With a miraculous means, but he's holding them and comforting them. And it says he's putting in hands. When our view of imposing hands, putting hands on, right, is I'm going to lay my hands on you, right? Like the Pope. No! What it means in Greek is to put your hands on someone. To hold them. Yeah. And why is this so unusual?
They
They're
could be
unclean.
unclean, or you just don't want anything to do with cursed
You don't touch sick people.
or it's a menial job.
That's beautiful answers, but I'm going to give you an even worse one. This is an Asian culture. Greeks are Asian, and so is Hebrews, right? Or Hebrews. Asian culture. Anybody know about Japanese culture? It is in the Japanese and the Chinese cultures, it is not uncommon for parents to never hug or kiss their children, or very rarely, because of their culture. It's the way the culture is. And by the way, our culture was not so different during the Victorian era. We made a huge change in our culture through the 20th century, right?
Seen but not heard.
Seen but not heard, not touched, not whatever. And in those cultures, some of the stuff I read, the Japanese, books and things I read, and the child is just, wailing and looking for comfort. And guess what? The mom is not going to touch him because that's not the culture. It is very rare in those cultures for comfort to come that way. And so this is a Greek culture. And so it's unusual for people to touch each other anyway. So, unclean, sick. Remember, they don't know about viruses. You don't get sick by that, but you get unclean, right? Or you could get the curse, right? So, just totally different view of the culture, right? So, in any case.
Lionel, I
Yeah.
gotta stop you. I'm sorry. In English, it says he could do no mighty work there. What does it say in Greek?
He could not do dunamis, force, which means, in Greek that does mean a miracle, but yet it goes on to say that he laid his hands on those who are not healthy and waited upon the menial. But that's the words that are used throughout Mark.
Does it have anything to do with these few people were receptive where the whole group was not?
No, I just think see, our view, and I think this is, we have, the health and welfare gospel says that if I have enough faith, right, whatever that is, okay, faith in Greek means persuasion. So if I'm persuaded enough, then guess what? Jesus will heal me. And if I'm not healed or wealthy or whatever, then that means what? There's something wrong with me, right? Jesus was doing things for people, not with dunamis here. Whether it was their faith, whether it was the power that he couldn't use here for some reason, I don't know. I'm just telling you what the Greek says. In spite of that, he helped them by touching them, comforting them, and by waiting on them. And in the early church, this is what I came back to before. I've told you this over and over again. We find that the early churches met in the Asclepions. And the Asclepions became the very first hospitals. Because, whether, and I believe in miracles, okay? Now, if you want to get rid of miracles, go ahead, be empiricist, because if there's no miracles, there's no God either, right? So I believe in miracles, so I believe that these early Christians were doing dunamis, miracles, but the early Christians, whether they were or not, were doing what for the people in the Asclepions?
Giving them comfort and care.
They were caring for them, feeding them, where their own parents would not and could not because they were cursed. So instead of viewing them as cursed, they viewed them as important to God. Right? So what this shows is Jesus sees that these unhealthy people, these people are important to God. Because he's God, right? Anyway, this beautiful stuff here. 6, he was amazed that thamazeo. He was traumatized. He stared in wonder at their lack of their apostia. They were not convinced. We say lack of faith. No, they were not convinced. So there's the thing. Was it their fault? Yeah, it was. Because they weren't convinced. But yet, even if they weren't convinced, what did Jesus do?
He helped them.
He still helped them as much as he could. But yet, I would argue that we want to make a big deal about, their lack of persuasion. But I think the big deal is what? That Jesus still comforted and took care of them in spite of that. You see? That's, I think, the focus of this. Jesus went around Didasco, teaching from village to village. And by the way, why was he going around teaching? He was trying to convince them. Right? If they're not persuaded, what is his job to do? To persuade. Now this is really beautiful. I got to get this. See if we can get through this. Calling proskalemi, he invited over. He called over the 12 to him, and he sent apostello. He set apart, sent away fast, them 2 by 2, and gave them authority, exousia, privilege over evil, akanthrantos, unpurged spirits, pneuma. Now this is what he said. And by the way, why is he sending them out? He is sending them out to help their lack of persuasion. They're not persuaded, so he's sending them out to train, right, to teach. But this is his instructions. These were his para-anglo, his near tidings. Literally, agelio. Agelio's in there, so this was his near message to them. Message from the gods, by the way. Take nothing for the journey, hodos. Take nothing for the hodos, the way, except a rhabdos, a stick used to strike. No yeast bread, no artos, no para, no wallet or purse, no chaleos, no metal, pennies or coppers in your zona, in your belts, not in your wallet. Wallets for carrying what? What do you carry in an ancient wallet? Food, right. You carry your money in your belt, not in your wallet. Your wallet's for food, because food's the most important thing. You die without it, right? Well, after a while. But they're carrying a stick to hit. What do they look like to you?
Warriors.
An insurrection, right? And he goes on, it says at 9, wear sandals, but not an extra tunic. So he doesn't want them to look like
Romans. Romans.
Well, Romans wore sandals. Who did not wear sandals? Prophets. prophets. You know, a prophet, now, a Greek prophet would be, you know, a teacher, you know, might be barefoot because they're a prophet, right? And a Hebrew prophet would be naked. So the implication here by Jesus is, I want you to make sure you wear clothing. He says to wear the word is chiton, which is an undergarment, a Greek undergarment, so basically a shirt. So they would have a chiton, a hemon, and a pelopon, and a hemon. So the outside garment is the hemelon, the pelopon is the clinic, and they'd have a shirt. So he said, don't bring an extra undergarment, shirt. That's the only kind of underwear people had in those days, which is an interesting statement. I'm not sure exactly what this means, but he's telling them, don't look like a prophet or a preacher, wear clothing, don't take extra clothing, and carry a stick with you for hitting. Then he says, wherever you enter, literally wherever you go into an oiko, stay there. Now, did he say when you are invited into an oiko, into a house? What he told them is to do this. The Greek is very clear. He said, when you come into town, what do? You enter into the house with your stick. And you're in the house. And what is he probably assuming they're going to do? Try to persuade them, right? Persuade them of the kingdom of God is near, right? And then it goes on to say, and stay there. Stay there until you leave the town. So in other words, you go into someone's house. I mean, it's like, people didn't have many doors. I mean, they had locks in those days. Right? And by the way, if it's Hebrew, they can't kill you if you come in during the day. If you come in at night, then I can kill you. But I can't legally attack you in Hebrew thought if you come in during the day. So you come in with your stick, and if the place will not welcome you or listen to you, shake off the dust, the rubbish, literally the rut. It's not dust, it's juice, it's rubbish, off your feet and leave as a maturon, as evidence against them. So, in other words, you come into the house, and what do you expect them to do? What's the first thing that you do when someone comes in your house if you welcome them?
Feed them.
Wash their feet. You wash their feet. So, in Hebrew culture, I wash your feet, and then I give you food. You know, it should be bread with some salt. That's the way they do it in the ancient world. Okay? But if you walk out with rubbish on your feet,
Yeah.
They didn't
They haven't been welcomed because they didn't wash their feet.
isn't that cool? But would you welcome a guy that comes in with a stick into your house?
Looks
I
threatening.
don't know.
Well, basically,
Why would that be unusual to carry a stick? You're walking up and down the whole road for miles and miles. You just want to walk around without anything.
what's the first thing that you do when you take over a nation in the ancient world?
Take away their weapons.
I take away your weapons. That's the first thing I do, is disarm the people. So guess what they don't have? Now, they may have some knives, but they don't have swords or weapons. And so what is the only weapon that you can have, basically? A stick, a cudgel, right? And even having a cudgel under certain conditions could be like bad or good? Bad. What do these people look like? What is Jesus? You know, people said Jesus was not martial, right? But what does it look like he's making here?
An army?
An army. And guess what? If you accept the army, what did you just do?
Set yourself up against Rome.
Bingo. This is Stockholm Syndrome. So like, for example, if I feed you, and somebody in the village says, guess what these guys did? They came with weapons and went into this house, and they welcomed them, right?
Provide comfort to the enemy.
Okay? You know, we look at Jesus as kind of some kind of weak guy, some kind of like wimp, right? But you notice what he did from the very beginning? Right after John, remember John passed on his thing to him? And what did Jesus do? He immediately went to the area where Herod was and challenged Herod with the same message, right? So just contemplate. This is very interesting because we culturally do not fully know the ramifications of why Jesus would do this. I'll talk a little bit more about it, and what we'll do is we'll get into the next part, which is about John, by the way, because this feeds directly into John the Baptist and Herod's interaction with him. But in any case, Father God, we thank you for your word. We pray that you look after us this week. In your name we pray, amen.